Welcome to the session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Amelia Male, a student at the Marymount School of New York, and today I'm excited to be having a discussion about tech and tech careers with Dr. Stephanie Couch, the Executive Director of the Lemelson-MIT program. Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world between Girls in ICT Day 2020 and Girls in ICT Day 2021. Girls in ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April. The objectives of Girls in ICT Day are to help to create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in the growing field of information and communication technologies. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, and the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and in support of Equals, the Global Partnership for Gender Equality in the Digital Age. Marymount School of New York is pleased to be a partner on this session today. The goals of the series include to interest and inspire girls and younger women with information about a range of ICT careers that can be had, bring before a broader audience some of the role model women in tech, and share information about their career journeys and work, offer diverse examples of how ICT is being used to support achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and other UN goals, showcase initiatives that are working with girls to support them in ICT studies or future ICT careers, and provide girls and young women in tech with a leadership opportunity to represent and promote a girls in tech organization with which they are involved and promote it to a broader international audience. To kick this session off, I'm going to introduce you to Marymount, my school. The Marymount School of New York is an all-girls private school in New York City, which emphasizes STEAM, science, technology, engineering, and art and math, education in all divisions of the school. For example, personally, I've taken courses each year of my high school career with digital fabrication, creative computing, computer science, and I'm also involved in some technology and code clubs. For me personally, I think Marymount's approach in incorporating STEAM education is extremely effective, not only for high school students like me, but also younger girls as well. So now I'm excited to shift to a conversation with Dr. Stephanie Couch, the Executive Director of the Lemelson-MIT program. Hi, Dr. Couch.
Hello there. Great to be here with you today.
So let's just start off. How and why did you get into technology?
I think my journey in technology started when I was actually working with the UC Office of the President, and I was working more in a government relations kind of role. And at that time, the internet and the use of online technologies was just really starting up. And our governor and our university president had the idea that we needed to get fiber connectivity out to all of the K-12 schools in California because they would be needing that infrastructure to be able to do online learning and collaboration. And so I actually helped to get the money into the state budget that would help to bring connectivity to all of our K-12 schools. And once we succeeded in getting that money, it was like, wow, this is a cool new thing, but how is it going to help us learn? How is it going to help us teach? And so that was the very beginning of my journey. And I'm going to fast forward to how I got to the Lemelson-MIT program. I was in California working on how to create really great opportunities for young people to learn STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and got invited to come see this wonderful program at MIT that works with high school students and teams of students and their teachers across the US to help young people develop as inventors and learn the ways inventors find good problems to solve, think about problem solving, and then work with people to design and build technological solutions. So I was intrigued by the fact that high school students were getting patents for their work and wanted to understand, what is the secret sauce? How do these high school students do this work? Because, wow, wouldn't I have loved to do that when I was their age? I guess the way that fits in with our topic here today is I like to think of coding and learning technologies to use them for a purpose, to help someone or to solve a problem that I really care about. And to me, that's just really a great motivator for then putting in the work it takes to learn to use a Raspberry Pi or microbit or any of those technologies.
Wow. I think it's really cool that you've combined education and technology. Do you have experience in education as well, or how did you fuse the two?
Okay, well, that's a really great question. So when we were able to get the funding to begin to bring schools into the online world, we had to think up, well, what are the new approaches to teaching and learning that this bandwidth makes possible? Imagine, you didn't have hardly any online instruction happening way back then. And so I started working a day a week, and then pretty soon it became a full-time job to work with educators across my state and to work with people who understood technologies, to work on new approaches to teaching and learning. And we found that the ability to talk to each other at a distance, just like we're doing here today, which before hadn't been possible, to learn from experts who maybe didn't reside next door to you in your own community, was really the best thing for learning and teaching that we could imagine. So the collaboration aspect of technology. And it was so incredibly motivating to the students that I was working with and the teachers I was working with. And so I needed a way to prove to policymakers that it made a difference in terms of learning. And you couldn't measure that on a test score. And everything that we were depending on whether we should spend money on it was at test scores. So I found these people at UC Santa Barbara, and they did this thing, it's called ethnography, where they analyzed the ideas and the words that students would use when they were talking like this on a video exchange. And they were able to show the progressions of learning by the complexity of ideas and words used, just like we are here today, and the take up by other students of those same words and their ideas. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. So I went back to school and learned ethnography, and I participated at a distance. And so we used that approach to study what difference my being an online student made at the university for my colleagues with different forms of technology used to go to class. What was the impact on me with those different technologies? What was the impact on my fellow students? And what was the impact on my faculty members? And so anyway, I got into this whole thing around technology and teaching and learning. And since then, focus as much of my research as possible on what educators intend when they use technologies, or what does the technology company intend for their product to do, what do they go out and say it does, and then what really happens when you use it, because sometimes they're not the same.
Yeah, wow. Another question I have is, did you face any challenges along your path in technology? Are there any obstacles that you had to overcome?
Yeah, the first is I'm not a very technical person. So imagine being in the technology world when you don't see yourself as having strengths in that area. And I knew something about education. I knew something about school finance. I knew something about policy. I learned how to be a researcher, but I couldn't call myself a technical person. So for the first year and a half, when I worked deeply in online teaching and learning, I actually ended up working for a nonprofit called CENIC, the Corporation for Education Network Initiatives in California. And it is made up of the universities there, the UC system, Stanford, Caltech, USC, their state college, their community college system, and then now that we added the K-12 in. And so there was a woman there, Sherilyn Evans, who I still owe so much to Sherilyn. She not only knew all the technology angles of networks and uses of different types of equipment and software, but she knew how to convert what she knew in layman's terms to audiences so they could understand. So for the first year and a half, any meeting I had that was important, I asked her to come with me, and she did. And pretty soon I learned enough from hearing her explanations that I could understand it and say it myself. So that's really how I made the transition in. And I think it can be scary entering a STEM world when you feel like an imposter, but there are these great people who want to help you. So it's finding your mentor, and I like to think of it as your cultural guide who's going to help you maneuver in this unknown world until you are learning and know enough about how you engage, what the acronyms mean, all those kinds of things.
I can definitely relate to that to a certain level, just being a little bit hesitant to be confident in myself, be confident in my STEM knowledge. Do you have any advice to young girls who are entering tech fields who may feel a little bit hesitant or a little scared?
Yes, one is don't hesitate to ask questions, even if you get like strange stares from the others. And there's always someone there that will want to mentor you if you reach out and get past that butterfly feeling in your stomach. And so, oh, I really admire them, but I don't know if I could ask them if they'd spend some time with me. And you ask, and oh my gosh, there are so many of us just waiting to be asked. It's such a thrill when you get to mentor someone or help someone else get to the next stage in their own career. So, my best advice would be please reach out to other people and ask for help, especially if there's someone you're hearing them talk and you think that person really has the knowledge that I need.
This is kind of going a little ways from that, but can you explain what you do at the Lemelson-MIT program and what your job entails?
Yes. So first I have to tell you what the program does, and then I'll tell you what I do. The Lemelson-MIT program is funded by the Lemelson Foundation out of Oregon, and it has been part of the School of Engineering and at MIT for 25 years. And one of the things we do is scour the nation for undergraduate teams or graduate students who are creating technological solutions or inventions for problems that really matter in this world and have important social impact. So we have categories like cure it, eat it, use it, move it, and we go through a juried process of those who apply for a prize we give out. $10,000 for undergraduate students, 15 for graduate students. And we go through a process, we award the 8 prizes each year. And so part of what I do in my job is administer that program and the staff who are running that program, but also I get to do research on how is it that these amazing college students got to be where they are and what kind of opportunities for learning need to happen earlier on in order to help us have more students who are able to do this kind of work. And one of the things I'm especially passionate about is getting more diversity into the world of those who invent and earn patents for their creations, protect their intellectual property, and then go on to start new companies from that. Right now, it's estimated that about 90% of the patents are awarded to males and 95% to people who are Asian or white. So not a lot of diversity in that patenting group. And so the other thing that we do then is take our knowledge of what kind of opportunities for learning it takes. And we have a number of different programs where we work with educators and with students all across now the early years through high school to develop the ways of finding and solving problems of like inventors do. So we'll get more diversity in that pathway. And we just yesterday, in fact, announced a new program initiative with the California Community Chancellor's Office and 4 of the California community colleges, and hopefully more down the road, which I think will be especially helpful in bringing all the creative ideas and cultural knowledge of the problems that need solving and potential solutions to the table, which should really promote invention, innovation, entrepreneurship in the US.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really inspiring. I didn't even know that 90% of patents are given to males. That's crazy.
Yeah, we have a long way to go. I know women have good ideas, and I know that women can create as equally compelling inventions as men. So what's going on here, right? An ethnographer enters with a blank slate, observes, tries to understand what is, and then asks, well, what's going on here? And clearly, I need to put my ethnographic eyes on to understand what's happening, that we are getting such a disparate outcome. And when I joined this program 4.5 years ago, I didn't know it when I joined. So that problem came into my awareness. And so I've been working to do as many research studies as I can to understand how we change those numbers. And what I'm finding is that there are a lot of young women who, if you said, would you like to come to this or that coding program? They would say, no, they're not interested in that. But if you give them the opportunity to come and be supported in solving a problem they care about, and you say, okay, there are a lot of technologies out here and you can invent your own solution that's new and novel, useful, unique, then they want to learn about technologies and how the technologies can factor into the solution that they're creating. And I could give you some examples. One of the teams that we had was from Southern California, a wonderful group of young Latinas who were really caring about homeless moms and things like needing to charge their cell phones. So they invented a solar tent that would charge the cell phone. And when I listened to their journey in creating that invention, it included having to learn to sew and having to learn to code, and learning to code by watching videos on their cell phone. So I get excited by thinking about some of these other ways people can come into the technology world. We have some curriculum we're just rolling out around how to invent with toy design, and part of that is learning to use a microbit. So we need a lot of different types of technology offerings out there, and hopefully things like this will bring more young women in and develop their confidence, and then they can go on.
Yeah, definitely. Just from my personal experience, I'm more interested in the part of technology that's more creative and not as, I guess, analytical and logical or super one side of the spectrum. I'm more interested in creative technology. And I just wonder if I hadn't been exposed to that. I've been really privileged and lucky that I've been exposed to that in my school and just throughout my life through my parents. If I hadn't, then maybe I wouldn't think that I could be involved in technology either. So it's really inspiring that you are working towards that.
Let me turn the tables on you then. Let me ask you to say more about all of that. So tell me how your parents have inspired you and what kinds of things you are interested in, how you even came to be part of this opportunity we're in the middle of right now.
Yeah, so as long as I can remember, ever since I was a little girl, my dad is in technology and my mom is an interior decorator. So they were both, I don't know, they showed me kind of two different worlds. Like my mom is very creative and my dad is very logical and analytical. And I've always been interested in architecture, which I think blends the two really well. And my parents have always encouraged me, and even in elementary school, my teachers always encouraged me to pursue math and pursue science and pursue those kinds of fields. So when I entered high school and I entered Marymount, I immediately was drawn to those kinds of courses. And my freshman year, I took a really, really cool class, which is called Digital Design and Fabrication, where we got to learn how to use all these different kinds of machines like laser cutters, 3D printers, Cricut machines, all of these different technologies and softwares too. And I absolutely love that class. And every year since then, I've taken some kind of computer science, STEM related elective course. And so I'm still very much interested in architecture, but also now in computer science and a lot of different fields too. So it's kind of been a lifelong process for me.
Wow, those are excellent interest areas, and to have the background of the courses that you've taken, that is fantastic. Rare, I have to say. But when you go about trying to ultimately come up with an invention, right, you have to not only have a good idea, but you ultimately have to reduce it to practice. And so those skill sets that you've developed by being interested in computer science and by being interested in digital fabrication means that it sounds to me like you can come up with a very creative solution given your background, and that you know how to reduce it to practice, to a thing, right? A prototype. So boy, I expect to see you in one of our invention programs.
I would love to, maybe. I have to think about it.
I encourage you. You know, one of the things we haven't touched on is It is impossible, really, when you get beyond high school and you enter a workplace. It's impossible for one person to have all the knowledge and have all the skills. And so you've been exposed to a lot of things, it sounds like, and that's great. But a lot of inventions are really a team sport. We like to say inventing is a team sport. And so one way a lot of young women have come to understand more about technologies and ways of developing their own skills have been by forming teams that then apply for one of our grant programs. And along the way of working on a solution to a problem, they might not have that technical skill, but everybody has to work together. And so you learn it as you go along over time. So there are a lot of different programs out there that are team oriented that you can get involved with that don't require you to immediately be the tech person. That I think even that kind of activity is really helpful as a first step for a lot of young women. We didn't mention it earlier. So it sounds like you've experienced a lot. So what would you say of all of your experiences? What would be the best program for someone who just has no knowledge and wants to just take a baby step and start learning about computer science and computational thinking?
I guess kind of what you were mentioning before about the group of girls who learn to code on their cell phones or their smart devices. There's a wealth of information online, and there's so many free courses that you can take over the summer. For example, I took this free course about architecture from, I think it was Harvard or something, on just like a free website, and you could just sign up and take it at your own pace. Or there's all these different YouTube videos, especially with the internet, especially with online school. There's so many different places that have converted their courses to being virtual, and that's really great because you can just learn from home. And I really want to take advantage of more of those this summer, and even summer programs. So many of them are virtual this year from colleges or universities. That too is just really great. Just, I think anything to get your feet wet is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, we like to say the best way to invent is to invent. Get going. Just get started. Find a good problem. I do have to be sensitive. Not everybody has the computers or Wi-Fi or even the technology tools to start experimenting and playing. And that is a very real problem. And I think if there's a silver lining to the cloud here with the COVID pandemic that we've all faced, is that the awareness of the digital divide that exists in America is gotten talked about and can't be ignored anymore. But a lot of public libraries, at least in the US, do have these boxes and devices and things like that that can now be checked out. More and more libraries are creating maker spaces and STEM programs that at least there's some support there, and that can be a benefit. Also, I know there are more and more technology centers that are youth serving in communities. So we need more of that type of thing, but they are out there and can help with that problem.
Definitely. We were talking about the digital divide in my computer science class this week, actually. And we were looking at all these different statistics, and it's crazy to me that that still exists. And looking at all of that made me realize how much of a bubble I really live in, because everyone I know has access to technology and has access to a smartphone. And I've never experienced that, not having access to technology, because my parents always provided that to me. And so I just feel that kind of inspires me to really want to work towards that cause, because it's really unfair. Yeah, it's just really unfair.
Yeah, having laptops for your education, having adequate Wi-Fi, tech support, that'll is, to me, an essential element of schooling in today's world. We do need to make sure that all young people have access. And I think it's good we're acknowledging we're not there yet, and we hopefully are one step closer now with what we've all experienced this past year, but we still need to keep making progress. And we are now experimenting with taking the work that we do here at the Lemelson-MIT program global. We have an exciting program we've just launched where we're helping young people learn the intersections between biotechnology and inventing, and how various inventions have helped the science and vice versa. And we're doing that work in partnership with the Biogen community labs. Biogen makes drug therapies for neurodegenerative diseases. and they have sites all over the globe. And we did a wonderful program last summer with them with 400 high school students. And we experimented, including using a virtual lab simulation Labster. So it was like you were inside the lab, you had to put the gloves on, had to put the safety glasses on, the whole thing. And now we're taking that global. And again, we have to think about, as we are going global, what kind of bandwidth is going to be available in these different sites, how we're going to accommodate where there is not appropriate infrastructure to deliver through Zoom. So a lot of things that we still have to work on. So thank goodness we're going to have a lot of young women working in the technology space, helping us solve all these problems and putting their creative minds to work, right?
Yes.
So if you were advising me, if I hired you as my advisor, how is it that we should be reaching out and engaging more young women and giving them the confidence to be able to learn to use different technologies and to enter and be part of our invention programs? I mean, does that word, that idea that you could even be an inventor yourself, is that something you have thought about, or do you think of inventors as just some people who are born brilliant and live on another planet and it would never be me?
Honestly, I've never really thought of myself as an inventor, but I feel like a really good way to kind of involve more girls and young people in that field is, I think, what we were saying before about combining it with different fields, not just saying you can only study this really strict, really complex computer science to be an inventor, be successful in a technology field, that you can combine your different interests. Like biotechnology, you can combine interests with biology or science or earth sciences with technology, and even being creative like graphic design or other design. Architecture blends those two with CAD and all of that more creative thought. So yeah, I feel like a good way to start is to start very young. Like I was very lucky that ever since a very young age, my elementary school would always encourage us to use technology and be fluent in using technology in different programs. So I think starting young is a very, very good thing. And I remember when I was in elementary school, we used to play these coding games where we would use Scratch and we would code these little animations and do these little fun things. And that, I think, was really influential in at least me getting super interested in it, because I realized I could be creative and create these little fun animations or create these little fun games. And that really encouraged me to want to keep going. And I feel like that's super important.
Tell me about a teacher that you've had that's made a really big difference in this area.
Ooh, there's so many of them, actually. At least in high school, in my freshman year, my digital design teacher was really, really encouraging of any kind of idea I wanted to do. She would just be like, go for it. And we can figure it out along the way, even if it was something that she maybe didn't even have experience in, and some new kind of software, some new kind of machine to use. She just really encouraged me to stretch my thinking to the limit, stretch however much time we had in our class time. If we had an hour or something, she was like, you have to work really hard every single minute and you can create more. Just never be satisfied with something that you think is subpar, just want to keep improving it. And I feel like I really tried to do that my freshman year. And even though it was kind of my first year really being involved in that kind of specifically a technology focused course, but I think she was a really inspirational teacher to have my first year. And she emphasized creativity too. We would do a lot of creative projects. So yeah, I love that class freshman year. I wish I could take it again.
You know, you have mentioned a couple times that you have diverse interests and different fields of study that have come together, like in my own career. And I love this saying by Sheryl Sandberg, the thing she wrote in her book, Lean In, which I just think is a wonderful book for women, where she talks about it's not a career path, it's a jungle gym. So you start out working on one area and you might go to another interest area, and pretty soon, you know what? These things overlap, they come together. And so I am sure that whatever path you choose to follow in your career, whether it's computer science or architecture or anything else, that at some point, all your wonderful interests will blend together to give you some really great opportunities as you go forward.
Thank you. I really hope so.
So one last question for you. You're getting to that time where you're going to have to think about, okay, where do I take my interests, which college and university or next step Didn't have to be college, university. What's my next step after high school? So how are you thinking about that? And how big of a role in your thinking is the building on your strengths in this computer science technology area?
Honestly, I haven't really done too much research in specific colleges yet. It's been a little hard with the pandemic. I've done a lot of virtual tours, but it's not really the same. But I feel like a really important thing for me is that I'm a very research oriented person. I like doing a lot of research before making a decision. So I've just been researching a lot, researching specific classes, specific courses I could take, the major requirements for different majors and things like that. So I feel like I'm still in a little bit of an initial stage of my college look, but I'm definitely focusing on majoring in some kind of technological field. So that's definitely guiding my thinking.
That's great. I hope you, if you have any questions as you do that searching and you want to reach out and have someone answer those questions, I hope you will knock on my door. I'd be happy to do that.
I definitely will. Thank you so much. That wraps up our session today for Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. Thank you so much, Dr. Couch. I really enjoyed this conversation. And thank you so much for our viewers for watching.
Stay in touch.